All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 TV program in the history of the universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Dead Man's Hand by James J. Butcher. This book just came out a week ago. I got it and I read it. Let's see, it's mid-October 2022. For those of you that might be watching this in the far distant future, just to know, when this book came out. This is book number 1 in James J. Butcher's debut. Well, this is his debut novel, and it's book number 1 in The Unorthodox Chronicles. So, let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. So let's get to it. This cover stands out. It's sharp. It's colorful. The illustration is done by what looks to be a very competent illustrator, whose name I should have probably looked up. Let's see if it's here. The jacket art by Chris McGrath. It's pretty dope. I like it. It's eye-catching. So anyway, who is James J. Butcher? Well, I think most of y'all are probably going to recognize the last name Butcher, and this James J. would be the son of Jim Butcher, the author of the Dresden Files. Now, I have a little bit of a history with Jim Butcher and his son James. So Jim Butcher, I've met several times. I've done book signings with him. I've even done a Comic-Con panel with Jim Butcher. If you want to watch that, just type in Comic-Con Durfee, Jim Butcher, writing fantasy tropes. It was a whole Comic-Con panel we did about writing fantasy tropes. Anyway, I met his son James about in the year 2016 when I was at a conference in Colorado Springs called the Superstars of Writing Conference. It's held every year. It's a great thing. If you're a young writer out there, here's some writing advice. If you want to go to the best writing conference in the world, bar none, please consider attending Superstars of Writing. It is run by people the people that they have teaching at this conference are Kevin J. Anderson, Jim Butcher, Brandon Sanderson, David Farland when he was still alive. We got Jonathan Maybury, James Artemis Owens. I'm missing a whole crapload of famous authors that have taught at this conference. But anyway, that's where I met Jim Butcher's son, James. In fact, throughout the conference, we kind of sat together in the same area and kind of struck up a little friendship. So I knew that he was an up-and-coming writer, and I'm really super excited to see his debut finally out. What is it about? Now, obviously, this guy is going to get compared to his father, especially since he's writing urban fantasy in the Dresden Files. It's kind of like similar setup to that, but different in a lot of ways. Let's get into it. So this is an urban fantasy. I consider it sort of PG-13 rated, a little bit like the Dresden Files. It's got terror and adventure and snarkiness of the characters and a sense of humor. It's set in Boston. That's why I wore my Salem, Massachusetts, the closest I could get to Boston. I got a lot of t-shirts from a lot of places, not from Boston. This is the closest I could get. Anyway, I'm really trying, folks. So it's not in the first person, though. That is one thing that I will say, that the Dresden Files are told in the first person from Harry Dresden. This is told from more of an omnipresent viewpoint. Although we do focus mostly on our main character, whose name is Grimshaw Griswold Grimsley. I think that's right. There's a 3-part name, all starting with G. Grimshaw Griswold Grimsley. That's his name. And he just got magic. It's got not as much magic as Dresden. In fact, a lot of the action sequences and fight sequences I found were just actually fist fights, knife fights, and a lot of gunplay. Not a whole lot of magic so far going on in comparison to Dresden, and now I'm going to stop trying to compare this to Dresden right now. because we've done that. Let's get into this. This is about Grimshaw Griswold Grimsley, Boston. He's an inexperienced youth in training to be a witch. He's in witch training. And he gets kind of like booted out of the witch training. This world is well, he gets booted out of the witch training, and then he has to solve a murder of his mentor. One of his mentors was murdered, and now he is the main suspect in the murder, so he's got to solve it. Otherwise, he's going to be on the hook for it. Now, this world that James J. Butcher has created is kind of divided into several different factions. There's the usuals, there's the unorthodox, and then there's the auditors. The auditors are kind of like the magical elite. There's this Department of Unorthodox Affairs that's going on. It's a government-sanctioned witches. They're government-sanctioned witches with powerful spells and prestige, and there's just a lot of stuff going on. It's kind of a cross between a little bit of like the Hogwarts with the masters that look over to Hogwarts, and then the all the kids have magic, and some of them are failing in and out of Hogwarts, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, Grimshaw Griswold is kicked out of this auditor training program, and he just kind of resigns himself to a life of mediocrity. He's just like, oh, I'm done, whatever. And then his mentor is killed, and he is the main suspect. And that's the main plot of this. He's got to, a very inexperienced magic user now has to sort of stumble through this landscape of magic and wizardry and witches and the supernatural. Very inexperienced. Now he does gain the help of a legendary, what they call a huntsman, which is kind of like this, I don't know, a mysterious being from a place called Elsewhere. And so we've got that character, and it's got a lot of interesting characters that revolve around Grimshaw Grimsley, and they solve the murder. I'm not going to say if they solve the murder or not. A lot of adventures happen. That's not spoilery. They may or may not have solved the murder. It might have a cliffhanger. It might go into it's certainly set up for other adventures, which is cool. I really liked this. I thought, as a debut novel, it was very crisply written. There was not a lot of wasted fluff and filler. I enjoyed the fact that the fight scenes were a little more realistic and grim and gritty, and not so infused with all this magic. It just was a good action adventure novel with a mysterious twist to it. I give The Dead Man's Hand, the debut novel by James J. Butcher, a solid 8.5 out of 10, and will probably be buying all of these that he writes and reviewing them on the channel as he writes them through the years, and so there is that to look forward to. If you want to get another series on your list of TBRs to be reads that's similar to what Jim Butcher is doing, look no further than his son.